Hi, and welcome back to Hot Off the Press, the show about new releases and the authors that bring them to you. I'm your host, Jim Nettles, and let's go around and see who is bringing in those things to stack up those to-be-read piles. So, Layla, you're up first, as always.
Well, I am author Layla Dorine. I write LGBTQ fiction and romance, heavy on the rockers, shifters, bikers, pretty much anything that daddies, littles, pets, anything they throw at us. If you have a shared world, I usually jump on in it, even Omegaverse now. But I'm here today to tell you about Rebels Warriors, which is book 5 in one of my Rockstar Romance series, and it is another poly.
David?
Cool. So David Ekrut, I write epic fantasy. And so I just had a new book in Ellen's World come out in December, and it's called True Elementalist. So I spent 10 years building the world before I wrote the first story, and I'm really excited about this book because it is the midpoint climax of this book is the midpoint climax of the story. So it's a lot of fun if you like fantasy. It's got a little bit of, it's like a three-act structure spread out over 5 books, but each book has, of course, a three-act structure, and it's like a fantasy story with a philosophy book hidden inside it.
Jenny?
Hi, I'm Jenny Koch. I write the Alien Catherine Kitty Cat series, formerly for Doll Books and now for Ginger Blue Publishing. I also write under a variety of other pen names and in all lengths and genres. And I'm here to talk about the re-release of book 14 in the Alien series, Alien Nation.
And James?
Hey everybody, James Pittman here. I write the Felix Chance series of books, and I'm here today to talk about the Brazen Head, which is the first folio of the new Saint Germain Letters spin-off series from my main series, Felix Chance.
So let's start with the big discussion, the world building. What would people be stepping into? So Layla, which world are we stepping into in the hot romance this time?
Well, this is a spin-off. This is the second spin-off from Damaged Saints, which was one of my Road to Rocktoberfest books. So Blissfully Immune is one of the bands that has performed at Rocktoberfest. They are a band who had a little bit of a shakeup, some members rotating in and out over the last book, which was Echoes of a Muted Song. That book had started right after a Rocktoberfest show. In fact, it started right after Damaged Saints and Blissfully Immune had performed at the 2023 Rocktoberfest. So fast forward to this year, and they are on tour. And they have actually brought in a new drummer as a relief drummer. They are kind of tackling what it's like to be famous now, to where they can't just, I'm going to slink out of the hotel and go do what I want, even though Rebel tries. I have to hand it to Rebel. He does not appreciate the fact that he might need to take a guard with him. Fortunately, this is a rocker bodyguard romance, so we all know how that is going to play out for him in the end. But it's been fun revisiting old characters, especially Jagger and Johnny. I don't know what it is about that pair and the jokes that fly and the innuendos, and every book has a different challenge. So they've done an ultimate pickle challenge where they made all the stuff. They did the pickle that was wrapped in the fruit roll up and covered in tahini, and they've done the one you cut in half and you put a Snickers bar in the middle. They've done all of that in the first book in Damaged Saints. And then they went and did an ice cream challenge where they did wasabi ice cream and all these weird ice creams. So this book, it's looking like it is going to be something down by the shore, and it is going to be a slushy one. But who knows what the crazy flavors of slushies these guys are going to end up trying. Squid Ink is actually on the list. I actually had fans last year leave me all the crazy things they wanted the guys to try for the next book. And however many of those I can work into a slushie is what's going into this one.
David, so since we're kind of midway in the series, but let's just talk about what's the world we're stepping into, right? What's the world of the series?
Yeah, so as you know, my background is biomedical mathematics. So I do lots of physics and math, and my PhD, and I like to study philosophy. So when I was reading about consciousness, the idea of where does consciousness lie, epiphenomenalism, conventionalism, all that fun stuff. This obviously is not in the book since Arendt is my own world. It's not Earth, but it's I've tweaked physics, and there's a system behind it on how magic works. The first book, it starts off, all of the characters are a little bit younger, kind of naive, and I don't hold it against me, but I grew up in the backwoods of Arkansas, so I put a lot of that in there, just in how how the characters grow. And Ellen and Pfeffer are the main two characters, and they discover what their true gifts are. So Pfeffer is a prodigy with the sword, and he is Ellen's best mate, and Ellen is an elementalist. And so this idea of consciousness was really fascinating to me, and I said, well, wouldn't it be interesting to create a world where everyone's consciousness could go into something? And so I called this essence. So they have this external, almost appendage that those that can sense it can then tame the elements. And the first book is Taming the Elements. And so the basic level of magic is elemental based. So the elementalist can tame the elements. But there's also sort of hidden magic in the world that gets discovered through the other books. And that happens in Mastering the Elements, which is the second in the main storyline. And then I have a standalone called By the Blade that sort of happens towards the end of Taming and overlaps a little with Mastering the Elements. And it's the backstory of Jackson Flist. And he's the antagonist for Elwyn in the second book. And I loved his backstory so much, I had to turn it into a novella. 131,000 words later, I decided that's no novella. And so it's like...
meet Jenny Koch. Yeah.
I resemble that remark.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you love these characters, and you're like, oh, I got to do more with this. So I decided to make like Indiana Jones in an epic fantasy setting. And so it's from a non-magic user's perspective of the world. And he's thrown in with a bunch of magic users in a unforgiving land where his father's a rich merchant, drags him across the desert. And the nation is built on an honor system that is sort of being broken by the magic users of this nation. And so if you break a rule, you could end up as someone's servant for a year, or you could end up fighting in the arena, depending on what the grievance is. And so Jax is sort of dumped at the gates at the beginning of that book and has to sort of figure out and learn very quickly not to, end up fighting for his life. And so but that was already built in, and I fleshed that out when, I don't know about you guys, but I have to, once I finish a draft, I have to shelve it. So I put it on the shelf and pretend like it doesn't exist for some period of time. And then I move on and I write something else for at least 6 to 8 weeks. And so that's when By the Blade was born. But True Elementalist is book 3 of 5 planned for the main storyline. And in that book, I sort of merged the magics in the world. And Elwyn works on becoming a true elementalist. So that's sort of the setup for the third in Elwyn's story, but the fourth in the world.
Jenny, so what are we doing to Kitty Cat in this one?
Well, this is book 14 in the series, and Kitty's husband is the president of the United States, and they're getting nothing but flack because, you get elected and then everybody loves you for 5 minutes and then nobody loves you at all. And the flag that's on the cover is actually the flag of Centurion Division. That's the aliens flag. It looks a lot like an American flag, but it isn't totally. And behind that, the golden tower, that's the Burj Khalifa. And a lot of action happens there. And I've got to say, it was super fun to write. The Burj Khalifa is, like, I think still currently the world's tallest building. It's really cool, and a lot of stuff is happening all over the world in this book, much of it particularly in the Middle East. And so Alien Nation, you think, oh, it's because, Jeff Martini is now the president. Nope. It's because there are aliens coming to Earth fleeing from a more terrifying aliens, and they're coming to Kitty for help. And how is Earth going to respond? How is the world going to respond? And are they going to be able to survive it? Because pretty much all the aliens that are coming, most of them are refugees. Some have left most of their population on their home planets, but some of them, their entire population is in their ships or in the ships that picked them up like Red Cross vehicles to save who they could off of ravaged planets. So it's dark, but it's still kitty because it's funny. So, and in this one, they finally really do end up head to head with the mastermind. And will he win or will they?
James, how about for this one?
So, The Brazen Head is going to be the first book in the Saint Germain spinoff. So it's set in the world of Felix Chance. And if you're not familiar with him, Saint Germain is who I lovingly refer to as the excessively verbose immortal alchemist. And basically, let me just read you the first paragraph, and this will set the tone for what you're in for in this one. Brazen Head. This is the story of Prince Rakosi the Uncrowned, exile, apostate, explorer of the world, of the man masquerading as Montferrat, believed to be Belmer, and cavorting as Chevalier Schoening in an adventuresome youth. Count Weldon, he claimed, when briefly detained in England, of he whom Francois Marie Arouet once called the Wonderman, and he who continually bested that profligate philanderer Casanova at his own game. These pages contain the eagerly anticipated account of the Comte de Saint-Germain, set by my own hand, and how the mechanical godhead foretold the coming of L'Envoy d'Eternité. So yeah, he is a very long-winded, braggadocious blowhard who, you know how some people say you can use one word that means 10 in place of the 10 words? Well, he uses 10 of those words that mean 10 other words if he can at all help it. In my editing process, I absolutely loved when my editor pointed out I had a repetition of dancing. And I was able to look up saltering, something like that.
Here.
But it was basically Latin for jumping about. And I'm like, yeah, he would totally say that while the other people dance. He was, warming himself with a saltaire. So Saint Germain started off in the courts of Prince Rudolph II in Prague around the 1580s. Historically, his story began in the 1700s in France, but, he's always claimed to be an immortal alchemist, so I'm going back to his roots before he was an immortal alchemist, and we discover how he became the immortal alchemist, or at least the first tidbit of it. And this is going to be the first in a trilogy novella series, exploring the backstory of Saint Germain, the origin of Felix a little bit, because, anybody familiar with Felix knows he's an unreliable narrator and he's lying straight to your face. So you get it from the blowhard immortal, who was witness to the advent of Felix Chance. And we get that side of history.
So now that we've kind of got the big setup, let's actually talk about who, right? Because every story is really about the people. It's about the journey they're on, how much we get to torment them, put them through the paces and everything else. So David, I'll start with you on this one. Let's talk a little bit about a little bit more about who we're on the ride with in this story?
Yeah, so it's the Elwyn Chronicles, the Elwyn Ascari Chronicles, and so I love Elwyn because he is a scholar at heart, forced into adventure by circumstances and sometimes his best friend. But if he had his druthers, he would sit by a fire and read a book, which I think most people reading a book can relate to. And he's also cursed with the misfortune of being innately powerful, and he just wants to learn. So so that's him in a nutshell. So did I answer your question?
Well, let's just talk about who else is he on the ride with.
Okay, so his best friend is sort of the opposite, and he acts as his antagonist in the first book. Pfeffer loves adventure, has always wanted any kind of adventure, and his hope and goal was they grow up in a small community and outside of the capital, and Pfeffer's big dream is to make it to the capital and train as a soldier. And become one of the elite forces in the nation. And again, he can't have that in a small town, so he contents himself with stealing pies and planning that off of window sills, or setting up pranks for people. And actually, that's how he and Elwyn meet, with him setting Elwyn up with a prank. So that's his running mate, and they of course make other friends along the way. But that's the first book. Oh, and there's you find this out very early on, so I'm not spoiling anything to say that Elwyn is sort of stolen away from his father, who is he didn't start off this way, but he's wanting to rule the world as you do, and his mother doesn't like this and steals him away and leaves him with surrogates, and that's sort of the setup for the first book. And so Elwyn is with an adopted family, and he doesn't find that out until some point in the book.
Well, I mean, we all know it's my goal to rule the world, so yeah.
Yeah, you have my vote.
All right, Jenny. So who all is Kitty going on the ride with this time, and which Kitty are we dealing with?
We are dealing with Kitty's the first lady now. She's the FLOTUS, and she's having a lot of challenges with that. We're going on a big ride with a lot of people because she's being forced into what sounds like it's going to be a world tour to try to convince everybody to get in line, to not blow ourselves apart or try to kill all the aliens that are coming, all of whom have higher tech than Earth. But in reality, she's figured out where the mastermind is, and that's what she's going for. So she's got two teams, the face team and the we're going after the mastermind team. And there are some new folks, a lot of folks everybody knows, coming with her in this big. She's got a really big entourage. But the one is the chief usher of the White House, who Kitty has been basically causing this woman nothing but pain, not intentionally, but she doesn't feel this woman has ever heard slang in her life and really doesn't want to hear it out of the FLOTUS, right? But she's going. But more importantly, there is a character that comes in late in the book, but he looms large. And that's Ali Baba Gaddafi. And he's actually based on a real gangster who lives in Bahrain. And a lot of the action is taking place in Bahrain. And so I'd originally used his real name. And my editor was like, let's make up a different name just to be safe, just in case, because this guy is a terrifying gangster. And he's a real person. So Ali Baba Gaddafi is absolutely based on a real person. But I changed him so he is terrifying. Kitty's making a lot of bear references. The King of Bahrain, she really feels is a wonderful little teddy bear. But Gaddafi is a grizzly. But Kitty's great with animals. So Ali Baba Gaddafi, he was very fun to write. Everything, the Burj Khalifa, everything set in all the Middle Eastern scenes were just amazingly fun to write. I had such a good time with the characters. King Rahim is great. It's like obviously Kitty isn't actually in our world. She is, because I'm writing in a multiverse, and she's like a couple of universes over. So I can change it however I want, and I do. So there's a lot of most of the old gangs along, and then there's new gang members, including the scariest gang member on the planet. And it's just fun. It's fun to do that and watch Kitty. One of her strongest strengths is that she can flip an enemy, not by using any tactics other than just being herself. And she's a very straight shooter. While she does come out of marketing and so can do all the spin doctory stuff, for the most part, she's just going to call it as she sees it. And that's very refreshing for a lot of people. So, I just had I loved writing this particular book. I like writing all of them, but I really enjoyed writing Nation. It has a great speech from Kitty that I really loved writing. To all the religious leaders of the world, and like I said, it's got a fabulous Burj Khalifa scene, including where Kitty and a small team are on a window washing rig, very near the top, trying to get down to rescue people, and it's very different when you're up that high. So anyway, I loved writing it. I loved researching it. This was a really fun one for me. And I think it's a fun one for readers too. So I'm really excited that it's coming out. It's not out today. It's out this week. So by the time this posts, it'll be re-released.
James, shall we chat a bit about your long-winded pontificating braggadocious characters upon this book?
Yeah, we like to call him a grandiloquent asshole.
You've used that phrase about me too, I believe.
Take some fictional liberties. But got Saint Germain in his precocious youth. He has been essentially exiled from the court of one of his royal cousins, Maximilian, in Spain, where he grew up with his other cousin. You might know him as Rudolph II, Holy Roman Emperor, in his court in Prague, where he is gathering all of the enlightened folks, all of the psychics, the prestidigitators, the charlatans, everyone who thinks they have some bit of esoteric input is flocking to Prague at this time. And Verkozy, a distant cousin, is more infatuated with his newly won violin and his music and his lady love, Tefania. So she is a major character in this, major driving force. You got Rudolph II, Holy Roman Emperor, aka Cousin Rudy. You have such esteemed personages as Dr. John Dee, late exiled of Elizabeth's court, with his prognosticator and scryer, going by Talbot at the time, the con man Edward Kelly. You've got mythological figures and the things like a walking dragon fruit tree in the Canary Islands. You've got blue caps exiled from Scotland, working the mines in Spain and then Andalusia and the ancient alchemist territories. You've also got, let's see, who am I leaving out? Brief mentions of pirate captain. Anyway, one of the pirate captains gives him a ride to the Canary Islands. And basically, a lot of the learned folks of the time make cameos, like Tycho Brahe, various other people at the time. I took from history and I drew along a lot of the people who may or may not have been in the court of Rudolph II, round about the time of the Gregorian calendar swap, which in Felix lore is when 10 days were stolen from the world and the Pope covered it up. So, of course, being the center of esoteric learning that Prague was at the time, Rudy was trying to figure out from the best of the best Kepler on up to see what just happened. Okay. And then I introduced some more of your cosmic beings, the archetypes that may or may not come from tarot. A few entities like that. They're earthly agents, as one does. So Saint Germain letters really start exploring that side of the Felix universe. And Felix himself titularly makes an appearance. We don't actually see him, but we are aware of his becoming, as Saint Germain likes to say.
All right, Layla. So let's talk a little bit more about who we're going on the ride with this time.
Well, we've got 3 main characters who are the center of the romance, starting with Rebel, because Rebel is kind of the long-standing. He's been there. He was there in Echoes of a Muted Song. He was referenced in Damaged Saints. He is an original member of Blissfully Immune. He's actually their lead guitarist. And him and Johnny pretty much grew up together, put the band together, along with Ozias, who is their drummer. They are really the core of the band. Now, Ozias plays a huge part in how we get Kit, the relief drummer, to join them. Ozzy's got some hand issues going on. It's a bad type of arthritis. He's looking for somebody who's basically going to be able to take over for him for half a set until I get to write his book, where he actually will step back completely. And the fans have all seen this coming, so no spoilers there. We've kind of built up. He brought Kit in, and it was one of the coolest scenes I've ever written, was in Echoes of a Muted Song last year. He brought Kit and another drummer in to audition to be his relief drummers. And because I was writing this at the time in Vegas, while this big Grateful Dead event was going on, and there was a lot of nights where we were sitting around that pool outside in a fire pit, and just kind of, I used to play guitar, so I'm hanging out with the musicians after the conference stuff is over to like 3 a.m, and we're singing, and somebody's got a ukulele and somebody else has got an acoustic guitar. I actually wrote that into the book, but had the band members as part of it, where they took their set and they did it poolside, and people are floating on the pool, and there's fairy lights lit up, and it's just a cool outdoor desert jam session. And that's where they had brought Kit and Claude in to, do their auditions. Now, Kit got the part, but Claude, for those who follow all the Rockstar Romance, they will have seen Claude in last year's Road to Rocktoberfest book, More Than Scars. Claude landed in that book with that band, so he will actually get his own book in a couple years, because we're doing like one character at a time every year for Rocktoberfest. Then you add in Steel, and Steel is actually Jagger's bodyguard, so he's actually a guard for their sister band that tours with them. So there's no like conflict that erupts when he and Rebel hit it off. The problem is Rebel has a real issue with following rules, and the guard has a real issue with taking his, as in Rebel's, safety seriously. So there's a lot of butting heads and a lot of steamy, kind of frustrations going on, that like there's great tension. And then when Kit sort of bonds with both of them in different ways, we end up in this cool poly situation as they're, undergoing this year's tour. And the best part about this year's tour is I will actually be at Smut Lovers this year for an event, and I am hoping to kind of get a scene in my head just hanging out there in Florida that can make its way in this book, because the trend has been so far that Damaged Saints and Echoes of a Music Song all have scenes from my actual vacations play out in each of the books. So we gotta keep that going.
Well, I'm just waiting to see how often you get people show up in cosplay for your characters. Anyway.
Oh, they can show up for the rock stars and cosplay all they want. I want to see what happens when they start showing up for the shifters.
Right?
And
that's just a furry convention.
Not to mention, I'm actually writing another pet play, and we are going far beyond pups and kitties. So show up at my table, dressed however you want. I sign anything, personally. I will sign anything you give me. On any surface, you give it to me.
Yeah,
I have no shame.
Someone else's book, not just mine. Someone else's.
Exactly.
Sure, why not? Right?
No, there is no shame.
I'm not going to confirm nor deny some of the things I've signed. All right, so I'm going to blame David for this question, but this popped into my head. So since I finally got to pull him on, and it's been a while, when he said something, this occurred to me, and this seemed like the perfect place to throw this one out there.
Yes, and?
What, and Jenny, I'm going to start with you on
I know, which is why I'm like, yes, and?
Yes, and? What is something about you, your process, knowledge, interests, anything that has anything to do with writing and storytelling, except for the actual process of writing, that is really important to the stories you tell?
It's funny, we were just talking at the dinner. I was raised by a absolute batshit crazy mother, and not in a good way. Paranoid, schizophrenic, narcissistic, negative OCD, blah, blah, blah. And she was a pathological liar. Now, in order to survive with pathological liar, you must become a better liar. And I did. And I use that in storytelling, because to survive, I had to tell stories all the time. Where were you? Oh, if I tell you, I'm dead. So it's not a good, it's not going to be a wonderful parenting moment. The Huxtables are not going to show up and cover for you. I'm going to get beaten, kicked out of the house, et cetera, et cetera. So I need to come up with a really good answer, which I was formulating on the drive home. Right. So I also learned how to lie really, really well, which helped me a lot in my marketing career. I'm not going to lie. And,
No. You were lying. You were in marketing.
I was lying, yes, but I'm not going to lie about that. Because a lot of times part of the lying is believing the lie, and part of lying is not making the lie so perfect that it's obviously a lie. And I got really good at that too. So it helped me all through school. It helped me all through my first career. And when I finally listened to the voices in my head and started writing, well, I'm just making up something to tell somebody, right? I had 22 years of having to lie to save my life with my mother, who was physically, emotionally, mentally abusive. So I'm only normal because of my grandmother. Well, as normal as any of us get, let's say, put it that way. So that is probably a much darker answer than you were expecting, but it is the real answer. The real answer is I had to lie to save my life. So like Scheherazade, only different, but I was making up stories that would protect me from instant wrath. And I got really good at it. And I got so good at it that I could pivot mid-lie if that lie wasn't working or looked like it was about to fail into a better version of the lie, which is what linear writers call, I found a better path. Right? So all of this, it was not a great childhood. And again, Not going to lie about that. It was not a great childhood. There was good interspersed with a lot of horror, but the lying, that's why I'm a writer. I know that's why I'm a writer, because I knew the voices in my head were mine, and making stuff up is not that hard. Now, making it up and having it be good, there's a level of good when you're lying to save your life, and there's a level of good when you're lying to entertain people, and they're different. So I had to learn how to lie effectively, so that the books and short stories and such that I was writing were entertaining and had that beginning, middle, and end. But yeah, no, yeah. Hey, kids, grew up with an absolutely horrific, crazy mom, and you too could have this kind of career. So.
I think I remember that was on as seen on TV.
Right?
Learn to write as
Yeah.
But I think that there's a lot of truth to that, right? Because it's the who we are. No writer is normal. At least nobody that normal being relative. We all tell stories because it's the way we process things, and it's often the way we do things. So I think that's actually valuable. Plus, fact, it's always helpful to know for those who read the work that we do, who we're letting into their heads.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons why some of my heroines have great parents, but most of them do not. Most of them find family. They aren't getting family. They have to find it to get something good, because I had to. Again, my grandmother and my step-grandmother were wonderful. My uncle was as damaged by my mother as I was. He did his best, right? My grandfather had her number and wasn't wrong. And, but I found family, and that family is all saner. Even all of us put together are saner than my mother. So it's nice to find a community.
All right, James, you get to follow that up.
So I will do a counterpoint and say that my mom and my grandmas were both great, and I'm very fortunate to have had a very good family and a good upbringing. And a very big way that it appears in my storytelling is one of the hallmarks of like my Felix stories. There's a grain of truth to everything. They were very good about subtle misdirection. If I was asking too many questions, they would come up with some, BS answer, but it was just ludicrous enough to derail me, to derail that thought process and put on something else and make me ask different questions that would spin out into different stories, and just believable enough to pass muster. So the core of Felix is like the everyday and ordinary, the misdirection, the superstitions, the old wives' tales, the little sayings, and like the truths behind them. So that became a very integral part to my storytelling process, was that very subtle way of engaging the reader. One of the things my readers both love and hate me for is that in my series, and I am guilty of this, I do this on purpose, all of the answers come in the form of more questions. So that I will never give anybody a straight answer in the pages of the book. Even at a convention, I will pull some BS answer out and just start spinning it. Like Jenny did with the advertising. It's just like, oh, new path, new thing unlocked. I just started BSing. I was putting together a Kickstarter last night, and I just started randomly, lyrically pulling out some Poe-level stuff about wandering through the pages as you sleep to promote my get your name stolen by the Fae. And it's like, be careful what you wish for. Kind of the thing they kind of instilled was it doesn't take a lot to redirect someone's attention. and to carry them along in a story, and to really just kind of be the weirdest part of someone's day. That's one of the mantras I go by with my stories. That's one of the things I tell anybody helping at my table at cons is like, if I have a friend they're cosplaying and they're going around playing Fae, stealing people's names to draw people to the booth, I'm like, your goal is to be the weirdest part of someone's day. And to just, I saw this in great effect in one of the last cons I did last year, where they went, stole a little kid's name. The kid's dad literally gave her the kid's name. And the kid spent all con running around trying to get his name back. And I know that's going to be like a core memory for that kid now as it grows up. So I'm just like, that kind of magic is what I want people to find. The everyday unordinary, the little glimmers of magic you tend to look over in a very busy, boring world. That's something my mom and both of my grandmas would always encourage. So that's one thing that has had a big impact on the stories I tell.
Layla?
Well, my mom, dad, and stepdad were all military when I was young. And I lived primarily with my mom and my stepdad. And my mom was naval intelligence. She graduated from high school at 16 and a half, went on to be a crypto analyst. So her favorite thing when I would ask questions would be look it up. Now, we had a giant encyclopedia in the house. I would look it up, but then I was the kid that would get obsessed about things. So I would look it up, and then I would look it up again, and then I would create a research project about it, which meant I had to go to the library and find all the other books on it and read them and follow those rabbit holes. But I wasn't just an indoor kid. That was for typhoon season. When it was nice out, because we lived on the island of Guam, we were the feral children, because we're living on base with no parental supervision. If you could fall out of it, jump out of it, lasso the coconut this is how we got the coconuts out of the tree. We would lasso them with a jump rope, swing off the tree, and hope our weight caused it to drop. It usually worked. It is not fun when it works and brings down a hornet's nest on your head. That one kind of sucked. That was not fun. But all those misadventures, getting chased by a boar, running into a banana spider's nest, tying the rope to the tree between the two houses and trying to Tarzan swing. Yeah, we smacked the other house. We did not have an understanding enough of physics to make that one work out in our favor. We got into that. So by the time I got back to the States into high school, it was a new city, and I was in the city with my dad. Now, my dad had retired from the military. He had traveled all across the country, riding motorcycles. He was part of a 1%er club. I got to go ride and hang out with the guys and build bikes. I got my first guitar at 13, started playing in metal bands. Dad would be there at the clubs with us so nobody bothered us. But again, we were still feral Gen Xers. We wandered that city until curfew. And the only thing Dad would say to us is, I better not see you guys walking on the Ave. And the reason for that is anybody who's ever been to New Bedford knows the Avenue, knows who walks on the Ave, and knows what goes on the Ave. We just weren't allowed to wander it. Otherwise, we were everywhere. We were out at West Island Beach. We'd do our homework there. We'd have a music circle, and somebody would be, 2 or 3 people. You're sitting there trying to get that term paper handwritten while the band's practicing. Or, my first D&D game was because our drummer played D&D and was like, this would be a cool downtime thing for the band. So when I started writing my first book, I was probably 10 or 11. And it would probably be considered Outsiders fan fiction because I was writing based off the book The Outsiders. And then when I got into D&D and went to college, I'd have 3 classes a day. They would be one after the other. The 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, the 10 o'clock. At 11 o'clock, we're done for the day. We're playing Magic the Gathering, Vampire. We're gaming. We're gaming till 3 in the morning, catching a little nap, consuming substances we probably shouldn't have been. Rinse, repeat. These are your days. you're going to class with a big gulp cup. It's a screwdriver. You got vodka in the orange juice, and you're in class, and the teacher's got a flask in the drawer. College was great. It was a tiny little place in Vermont, and it was a military school. We're all feral Gen Xers. Where are we on the weekend? Burlington, Stowe. We're running around, getting in cars, driving down to New York City, driving over the border to Montreal to spend spring break in Canada because 18 was the legal drinking age. And these are all of the things I started putting into my books when I started writing, because eventually I found myself 21 years old with a kid that I couldn't take to D&D games because he screamed. But at this point, I'm such a heavy gamer, I can't give up the game. So somebody goes, hey, there's online gaming forums where you can write everything. Oh, really? So I started playing online e-fed roleplay games where it was wrestling roleplays. And I've loved wrestling since I was a little kid. So my very first book is actually the first 11 chapters, 13, comes from an online wrestling roleplay game. And the characters that I spent 17 years playing the game with. And every adventure, if it's in my book, if it's hiking up in the mountains in Estes Park, if it's dirt bike riding, if it's, exploring this haunted place, jumping out of an airplane, zipline, every single thing that's in my books, I've done. And so I'm writing it from firsthand experience. I have jumped out of the daggone airplane. It was the most exhilarating thing. I hit the ground and the first thought was, can we please go back up? So if I want to write a story, I've gone horseback riding 8 hours up a trail to end in a cowboy supper at a chuck wagon because I needed that scene for my book. I did not walk quite right because I'd never quite been on horseback riding that long, let alone on rocky trails in the Rocky Mountains going up. And I swear I saw a bobcat or some giant kitty that scared the crap out of me. Horse didn't seem to care, so I'm going to guess I probably didn't see anything scary and just hallucinated it. But all of those experiences and reactions, I would get back to my tent and I would write the whole day down and all the story ideas that would come from it. Rinse, repeat, and that's how I've done every single story, is taking the next experience. I'm always looking for the next adventure. I'm always looking to go to the next place. And I'm always, I'll be 50 this year. Oh my God, wow. So it's kind of gotten to the point where it's like, there are some things that are one and done, where it's like, all right, cool. We have the experience. We're getting too old for this shit. We are not doing that again. That actually, took a week to recover from. That never happened before.
Yeah, being feral takes a lot longer to recover from these days.
Right?
Doesn't stop me, but
no lies.
Takes
It
longer.
really does.
David, what about for you?
Well, I'm going to use my spin here. Well, fuck Jim. I already answered this question, so I have to come up with something else. So, I mean, to sort of encapsulate what we're all saying here is you put everything you have into the book and then some things you don't have. I think, like my favorite writers have just a huge level of empathy, and that's how you gain perspective to write a character that's not really you, but you still have an experience of someone like that in your life, whether it's a father that was abusive. That may or may not be why all the dads are jerks in my books. But, or your mother is abusive, which mine is not. She is my number one fan. So, but I think empathy and, feeling people is an important aspect for me to be a writer. And this is also why my idea of a vacation is to go to other places, coffee shops, and feel the vibe, and it could be a mannerism someone does, and I am no longer in the cafe. I am in a world of my own choosing, creating, and that's really my happy place. So, and it probably, I grew up in a very small town. I started off as a truth seeker. And what that meant to me when I was younger is I went to seminary school. Now I'm a scientist, so it means something different to me than it did then. But all of that sort of experience of the idea of good versus evil, or is there a good or an evil, that sort of goes into my books. And I love to write characters that and work against them using both their flaws and their strengths. If someone is a hero, then they're going to, they're going to say yes, they're going to do the thing, no matter what happens. Or if they're, bookish, they're going to say no and be dragged into it. But, whatever it is, I like to just sort of pick on them in that way. And, so I guess, everything I have and have experienced goes into the book, and I can't say that I have done all of the things my character does because I'm not in jail, but I get as close as possible, I suppose, so that I can experience it. So, but yeah, also I would say another thing. I practiced mixed martial arts for over 30 years. So my fights are a bit more realistic in that, I don't make them last 17 chapters, which I've read in fantasy, not naming names. But, I'll read the next book they write, but, I might skim those chapters.
You're assuming George is ever going to write another one.
There is that. So.
Well, I think that's a good place to put a bow on this one. But before we get out of here, let's make sure everybody knows where to find you guys. Website, social media, and of course, remind them the book that they've got to go pick up. So, Layla, you're up first.
Well, you can find me at Layla Dorine, author at Wix.com, Rainbow Lyrics and Mellow Mushrooms, which is my blog. Layla Dorine's Moonlight Magic, which is my Facebook group. I have gotten better at Insta and Blue Sky, so I'm now on there regularly. You can check out pretty much updates several times a week there. I'm on Facebook way too much. You can pre-order Rebels Warriors. That will be out. We're going to leave when that's going to be out alone for right now, but you can pre-order Rebels Warriors. It is up. We do have a cover on that. And if you are looking for the very next thing that I have coming out, that will be Daddy's Precious Pets on February 21st. It is part of the Lacton Brotherhood series, and it is another polybook.
David?
Well, you can find me at davidekrut.com. I do a bit of everything. As a scientist, I publish my cancer research on there. I do I write for a magazine. I put that on there, but my fantasy books are also on there. And I have to give a shout out to Chris McDonald, who is the voice actor, or he has 40 years of acting experience. He does my audiobooks. He's amazing. And the audiobook for True Elementalist dropped today. So you can find us on Audible, Apple Books, and of course, Amazon and all the places where you buy books. Hit me up on, I'm not on Facebook a lot because I have 3 jobs, 3 kids and 2 cats and a wife who sometimes likes to see me. However, I do try and update people on Facebook, and I'm on most of the social media platforms occasionally.
Jenny?
JennyKoch.com. If you want to join my free newsletter, hook me up. You can do so from the bottom of most of the pages of that website. I'm all over Facebook. Layla and I are both on there way too much, but we're there, so you can easily find us. I'm also on X, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Pinterest. The most recent release is re-release of Book 14, Alien Nation, available Amazon, BNN.com, Kobo, Applebooks, blah, blah, blah. If you're having trouble finding it because the mass market paperbacks are still available in some cases, go to Ginger Blue Publishing's website, look at new releases, and you can just click on the cover, and then you can go directly to what version you want, ebook, trade paperback, hardback, or trophy hardback, and it'll take you right directly to it. So we've had a little malicious of all I see is the paperback. It's like, yeah, it's advertisement. And that's what's coming up. And if you don't have 1 through 13, you can get those too.
James?
You can find me on my website, halfacrepond.com, or on the socials at j.e.pittman, most of them. And Facebook is J.E. Pittman Writes. Brazen Head comes out, releases January 29th. The next two should be about a month after the previous one. And also running, probably right now, still halfway through, Felix Chance Kickstarter for the deluxe spec fee, ooh la la, fancy swanky edition. And what else? Oh yeah, Second Chance audiobook. All of it's coming out right about now, so grab them all.
And you can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentialsworkshops.com, creatingpros.com, and of course here at ConTinual, and go stack up those to-be-read piles. It's winter. You don't have anything better to do.